Hello, our topic is forecasting, and specifically how transits activate major planetary patterns in the birth chart. So the idea is this: everybody has major planetary patterns in the birth chart, and those planetary patterns are the main thing astrologically that motivate us, that give us our talents, that create the major issues in our lives. So, for example, suppose you are an athlete, then there is some planetary pattern contributing to you being an athlete, or if you're a musician, or maybe you're not a musician but you have a burning desire to go into music. Sometimes these astrological forces are potentials that don't get developed. So these forces that are trying to flow through us are in the major planetary patterns. Now, suppose today the planets in the sky, we call that the transits. So the transiting planets are making aspects to that planetary pattern. Or suppose the transiting aspects are in a similar planetary pattern as the one in your chart. Then this activates the planetary pattern and it becomes very strong. So myself and a few other researchers have been doing research on athletic performance, and we have been finding that when the athletes perform better, those planetary patterns are getting activated. So it's a very exciting area of astrology. And to illustrate the idea, I'll use a very popular person that's accessible to all of us. Very often celebrities or political people are good to use because we all have access to that information. So I'm going to use the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who had a very interesting week from July 16th to July 19th. That week from Monday through Friday was particularly interesting for Donald Trump. He starts off the week on Monday with a big meeting with Vladimir Putin, the head of Russia. They meet in Helsinki, Finland. Now, Trump is known to go off on his own, to just say things that are upsetting, that are out of context. They say he goes off script. I mean, he just says whatever's on his mind, and sometimes it doesn't fit in well with what people are expecting. It's not comfortable. And whether you are pro-Trump or anti-Trump, I think we all agree that this is something that's conspicuous about Trump. Now, when that pattern in his chart, he has a planetary pattern, we're going to see it's an 11 vibration. So he has an 11 vibration. We can see it in what's called the 11th harmonic chart, this pattern. Now, even if you're new to harmonics, you're going to be able to follow this reasonably well. But I'm going to show you this 11 vibration, which makes him very independent, not able to follow what other people want, and also specifically his desire to get down to business, to not be fooling around, not to make excuses, not to indulge people, just go after it, do it, get it done. You know, he was a celebrity person on television in a show where he would fire people if they didn't do well enough. You're fired. So it's the you're fired attitude of Donald Trump. This, let's not make excuses. We don't need these long meetings and all these government agencies all talking and talk and never doing anything. Let's do it. Let's get it done. Let's go. For better or worse, whether you like this or don't like it about Trump, I think we all agree it's a big part of him. And this week he's gone off the rails. He has gone totally wild. He talks very nicely about Putin. Putin has been uh, charged. He's allegedly been behind the Russian interference with the United States elections, the United States intelligence departments, the FBI, and so on have determined this. And Trump says, oh, well, you guys think that Trump did this. I don't think he did it. and then to top it off, on Thursday, July 19th, he invites Putin to the White House for a meeting in the future, as if to say, you guys, you have your doubts about me. This is what I'm doing. Too bad. I'm bringing Putin back. We're having more meetings. So he's just totally independent. And this is more extreme than the usual kinds of things Trump has done. Some of the Democrats, the opposing party to the Republican Party that Trump is, uh, he's a Republican. They're saying this is treasonous. You've gone against the United States. So it's been a hot thing. So as soon as this started happening, I said, oh my, there must be transits over this 11th harmonic pattern, and wow, the transits are conspicuous, as I expected. So I'm going to show this to demonstrate the ideas. One case does not prove anything, but to illustrate the ideas, demonstrate how it works, I'm going to show this to you. Okay, so let's take a look at it. What we're going to do is we're going to pull up the chart of Donald Trump. We're going to create the 11th harmonic chart, and we're going to pull up the chart for July 16, make the 11th harmonic of it. It's an 11 to 11 vibration, and we're going to see how it gets activated. So let's do this real quickly. I'm in the Sirius 3.0 software, and I've been looking at this. Here's Donald Trump and the transits, but I'm going to start new. I'll go to new, and I'm just going to show you the whole thing from scratch. I'm going to clear all entries, start a new list, and I'm just going to type Trump, Donald, there he is. The Sirius software has 85,000 charts, so he's already in the database, very convenient. We don't have to enter it in, and there's a link over here to the online Astro Databank where I can confirm the birth time, that it's the same as what's in the online Astro Databank, and it is. I've already verified that. So there's his chart, and I'm going to go ahead and create the chart for July 16 while I'm here. So what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to create the chart for July 16, 2018. This is only, oh, what did I type? July 19, July 16, 2018. This is only one way to do it. I'm going to show you how you do this with a bi-wheel. There are other tools you can use, timeline, but in this video I'm going to show you how you use the bi-wheel to see these things. And I'll do it for 3 p.m. in Helsinki because that's where the meeting was, Helsinki, Finland. And I'm imagining that they were probably meeting during the afternoon. Maybe they started in the morning, went to evening. The exact time doesn't matter too much. Doesn't matter exactly what time you do, but I'll just do 3 p.m. That's fine. And I'll click done. Should I save it to file? I don't care. I will not. And now I've got the two charts. So here's the positions of the planets on July 16, and I've got Donald Trump, and here's Donald Trump's chart. Now what I'm going to do, here's the key. I've got 5 steps here. Number 1, we find the major planetary pattern in the person's chart. So before you can do this forecasting, you have to find out the big thing in the person's chart. I've already found it. It's in his 11th harmonic chart. Let me show it to you. Here's his chart. I'll go over here to harmonic charts, select harmonic chart, type 11, and do you see a conspicuous planetary pattern? Oh yeah, look at that big thick red lines, and there's actually 2 sets of them. There's Mercury, Jupiter over here, opposition Sun and Venus. That's not the one we're going to focus on. It's the other one, Mars and Saturn, over here conjunct at late 21 Virgo and 24.5 Virgo, so 21 and 24 degrees Virgo, opposition Pluto at 20 Pisces and Moon at 23 Pisces. So 4 planets. The aspects are strong, which is indicated by the very thick red lines. So if you have 3 or more planets closely aspected to each other, you have a pattern. The more planets, the tighter the orbs, the more important it is. Here we have 4 planets very closely aspected. It's a major, very important pattern. What does it mean? 11 is the harmonic of being progressive, of being restless, of being moving, of not wanting to sit still, of being impatient, of being on the go. And Donald Trump has Mars and Saturn, which means let's get to work. Let's not fool around. Let's not be talking while we're supposed to be working. Let's not be complaining. Oh, it's too hot, it's too cold. Stop your whining and complaining. Get down and do whatever needs to be done. This is a big part of Donald Trump. He's impatient, on the go. He can't wait. Let's just do it. He's going to fire everybody. He's even continued to fire people after he became president. If he doesn't like what you're doing, you're too slow or whatever, you're out. Let's go and let's get it done. And it's opposition Moon and Pluto. Pluto is compulsive and obsessive and irrational. So he's obsessive, compulsive, and irrational about this. There's no doubt about it. When I say irrational, I don't mean that you're illogical. I mean, it's just something you feel such a deep inner compulsion about. So obviously he's very deeply driven about this, and the moon means it's his whole attitude towards life, his mood, his disposition, his way of being is all about doing this. It's a 4-planet pattern. Now, this is that part of Donald Trump. It's this pattern. When the transiting planets are on this opposition, like if a transiting planet is conjunct the moon and Pluto, and therefore opposition Mars and Saturn, or the other way around, if it's on the Mars Saturn opposition moon Pluto, especially being right on this opposition line, this axis from about 20 Pisces to 25 Pisces and Virgo. So 20 to 25 or 20 to 24 Virgo Pisces. So either Virgo or Pisces. Let's call it 20 to 25 degrees. When planets right there, right on that, it's activating it. The other thing is, if there's a Mars Saturn in the sky, or a Mars Saturn Pluto, or some kind of combination similar to this, then what's going on in the sky is resonating with the way he is. So this is what's going on, and this is what's happening during this week when this part of Donald Trump becomes amplified, because all of us have different sides to ourselves. For example, maybe you are athletic, maybe you're also a researcher, maybe you're also interested in science, maybe you're involved in social activities, maybe you're involved in community service, maybe you're into meditation and things like that. We have different sides to ourselves. As the transits activate the different patterns, it brings out the different sides of ourselves. And this side of Donald Trump, a very powerful, strong part of him, is hugely amplified during this week when he shocks people by going to extremes with this, which he does periodically. Every time this gets activated, this is the way he is. So let's see how it gets activated. To do that, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the 11th harmonic of the transits. So this is interesting. We're going to compare the 11th harmonic of the transits to the 11th harmonic of Donald Trump. And if you're not into vibrational astrology or harmonics, that may sound weird, but think of it this way. Think of it as a wavelength that you're on. Trump is on this 11 wavelength. When the planets get on that 11 wavelength, and when they activate his 11 wavelength, that 11 wavelength gets amplified. It gets highlighted. It becomes conspicuous. So if you think of it that way, it's not so far-fetched. We're finding out when these vibrations are resonating and activating each other. It's really a very simple and straightforward idea. So that's what we're going to do. Let's go to the transit chart, and we'll select the 11th harmonic of it. So these are the positions of the planets on Monday, July 16, 2018, while Trump is meeting with Putin. And by the way, he has a closed door meeting. People don't exactly know what went on. I mean, he just goes his own way. He's going to get done what he wants. He's, he doesn't like the press. He doesn't like this. Everybody's in his way. He's going to get down to work and do what he wants. So obviously, to me, something's activating this pattern. So let's select the 11 vibration, we'll call the 11th harmonic chart of the transits. Now notice we have 4 charts now. Up in the upper right corner, we have the July 16 natal. There it is. And then underneath it, indented, is the 11th harmonic of it. We have Donald Trump, and underneath Donald Trump, indented, we have the 11th harmonic of Donald Trump. Now, what we want to do is go to the 11th harmonic of the transits. It's important to go to the 11th harmonic of the transits because we're going to time adjust it. We're going to move it forward a day at a time from Monday, July 16 to Thursday, July 19 to see what's going on during this time period when Trump is really extreme in this independent way that he is. And we're going to follow it and watch it in a bi-wheel. We're going to make a bi-wheel of the transits on the outside and the natal on the inside, but it's going to be all 11 vibration. So from the 11th harmonic chart, I'm going to go over here to bi-wheel. Select bi-wheel. There it is, bi-wheel. It asks me what do I want in the inner. I want Donald Trump 11. Donald Trump natal 11. I want July 16 natal 11 in the outer ring, right? Natal to transits, both 11th harmonic. I click OK. It asks what style I like. I like this style, unequally spaced own cusps. Everybody has different taste. I really like this style. That's what I'm going to use. Okay, we're good. I'm going to click OK. Now, just look at the Mars Saturn. There it is. The, you're familiar with this now. There's that Mars Saturn in late Virgo, opposite his moon Pluto in late Pisces in the inner ring. Do you see any planets in the outer ring right on it? Well, obviously we do. The sun is right there. There's the sun at 23 Virgo, right in the middle of the Mars Saturn. And there's Uranus, just a little bit past. It's at 25 Pisces, towards the end of this pattern. And Uranus is not retrograde. There's no little RX retrograde symbol there like there is over here for Pluto. So it means that over the past few days or weeks or months, Uranus has crossed over this. So leading up to this meeting, Donald Trump has had Uranus, the planet of freedom and independence, activating this, making him a real wild card. A real, what's the word, maverick. I mean, his self-willed nature activated by Uranus, it's going to be hard to talk to him or sway him as he heads into this meeting. So this has been building up as this meeting approaches. And then on the day of the meeting, the sun is the light of day. It's the action. It's the activity right on it. Now, here's what we can do. We can use the time adjust to see how long these planets are there. So it's right here, this first clock. There are two clocks here. The first clock is the interactive chart adjust. And because I've selected this from the transit chart, I'm adjusting the transit chart. You'll see. I'm going to go to time adjust. And let's go one day earlier because the sun moves very fast. So how long is the sun sitting on here? Let's go one day earlier. So I'm going to click the left arrow. You might be surprised because if you're thinking the sun moves 1 degree a day, that's in the natal chart. In the 11th harmonic chart, it moves 11 times faster. So it's going to be at about 23 minus 11. What is it? About 12 degrees Virgo. Let's see if I'm right. I'll hit the left arrow to go earlier, and there's the sun at 12 Virgo. So the sun is moving very fast. Now we use large orbs in harmonic charts for conjunctions. We use a 16-degree orb. We want about half of that, about 8 degrees, but a maximum of 16. So a day before the sun is approaching Mars Saturn, I'll hit the right arrow. Now it's right in the middle of it, and the next day the sun leaves, and it's up to 3 Libra. So right on that day, through the whole day, the sun is on this pattern, ensuring, making it very clear that Trump is going to be doing his Moon, Pluto, Mars, Saturn thing, his 11 vibration thing on that day. He's going to be doing his own thing. He goes into a 2-hour private meeting. I mean, he really goes very extreme in that style that he has, because the sun's sitting right there. Now, how long is Uranus here? Uranus moves much more slowly. I'm going to go 7 days, because in one day I'm sure it won't move much. So I'm going to go 7 days earlier. Here's Uranus at 25 Pisces. So I'll go 7 days earlier, 24 Pisces, so 1 degree a week. Let me go in 2 weeks earlier, 22 Pisces, 3 weeks earlier, 20 Pisces, and entering it. So for 3 weeks before, and by the way, it gives the date up here, June 25. So 3 weeks earlier, I just went 7 days 3 times. So 3 weeks earlier on June 25th, this pattern starts getting activated by Uranus and continues right up to about the time of the meeting on July 16. Uranus is activating as we lead up to it, and then Sun is right on this configuration on the day. So we're seeing it very strong. So that's a very fundamental thing going on. So I just canceled out of that. Now, look around the chart wheel. On the outside is the transits, and you might notice something very interesting. Mars and Saturn are at 15 Leo and 19 Leo. Remember, we allow 16-degree orb in harmonic charts for conjunctions. 8 degrees, about half of that to be strong. This is only 4 degrees, so it's strong. Mars and Saturn are conjunct in the 11 vibration chart at the time of the meeting. Donald Trump has a Mars-Saturn. So the Mars-Saturn is duplicated. It's in the transits and it's in Trump's chart, making a resonance. Now, this gets a little bit advanced, but there's something else we're going to do besides the bi-wheel. We're going to look at the composite chart. Composite of the transits and the natal, and see what the 11 vibration is there. And when the planets make the same aspect in the transit chart as the natal chart, it often collapses into a conjunction or opposition in the composite chart. Let me say that again. In this specific case, because Mars and Saturn are conjunct in Donald Trump's chart, and they're conjunct in the transits, there might be a conjunction of Mars and Saturn in the composite. We make a composite of the transits and the natal, and we're going to find out that there is, and it's very exact. So we look at the 11th harmonic of the composite chart. So we do two things. Let me summarize. We do two things. We compare the transits to the natal in a bi-wheel, and we look at the composite chart of the transits and the natal. We look at the 11th harmonic of it, and it's going to confirm the Mars-Saturn is extremely strong. And furthermore, the Mars-Saturn at 15 and 19 Leo, they're both retrograde. See those retrograde symbols? They are retrograding into an opposition to Pluto. So they're not quite an orb. We allow 8 degrees for an opposition. The Mars-Pluto is 6-degree orb. So it's very, very weak. But over the next week or so, Mars and Saturn are going to move into an opposition to Pluto. And then there's going to be a Mars-Saturn-Pluto pattern in the sky. And Trump has a Mars-Saturn-Pluto. And when I saw that, I looked at this. When did I look at it? I think I looked at it the day, 2 days after the conference. I looked at it on Wednesday. And I didn't have time to make the video. I was going to make the video, and I was going to say there that Trump is going to do something more radical again a few days after the conference, because there's the Mars-Saturn-Pluto gets activated in the sky. Let me show it to you. I'm giving you a lot of information. If you're getting a little bit overwhelmed, let me say that again. If you're getting a little overwhelmed and this is new to you, you can watch this again, but let me just say it very simply. Trump has a Mars-Saturn. There's a Mars-Saturn in the sky. More specifically, Trump has a Mars-Saturn-Pluto, right? Mars-Saturn, Pluto, and Moon. And let me move forward. If I go back to my time adjust, and if I move forward 3 days, I move forward 3 days from July 16 to July 19. This is the day that the White House announces that Trump is inviting Putin to the White House. Okay, so 3 days after that meeting, Trump, just to confirm that he's doing his thing, and he's meeting with Putin, and they're going to have more discussions, and the Democrats can go crazy and talk about treason or whatever they want to do. He doesn't bother him. He's going to do his thing. And look what happens to Mars. It retrogrades to 7 Leo. It's a half a degree orb opposition to Pluto. So let me show you that again. I'll go back. This is July 16. See up here in yellow, July 16? Mars at 15 Leo. And over 3 days it retrogrades. Let me hit the right arrow. It goes from 15 Leo to 7 Leo. Directly opposition to Pluto. It's a half a degree orb. It's like a late 7 Leo. So right at the time that Trump decides he makes this announcement that he's going to have another meeting with Putin, to continue what he's doing, because he's feeling very strong about this, is when this pattern gets lined up with the Mars with Pluto. Mars is also still near Saturn. This whole thing is going on. And by the way, Saturn is conjunct his Uranus. If you're an astrologer, you know that Saturn Uranus is wickedly independent and radical. And look at this. Transiting Saturn is on Trump's Uranus. Transiting Uranus at 26 Pisces on, if we go up to July 19th, it's 25 to 26 Pisces during this week, is opposition Trump's Saturn. It's actually opposition his Mars more closely, but it's, it's leaving the opposition to his Saturn and still a little bit north. So there's a lot of Saturn Uranus energy, further accentuating that he's going to be freewheeling, independent, make his own rules, because that's what happens with Saturn Uranus, and disruptive. He disrupts things as he often does. The bottom line is this: we see exactly what we expect. Let me cancel out of the time adjust and summarize. Summary. Here's the Mars, Saturn, Moon, Pluto in Trump's chart. Does it get activated when he goes wildly independent? Yeah. Sun is right on it on that day of the meeting. Uranus has been on there for the preceding 3 weeks and is still there. And while that's happening, the Mars Saturn is replicated in the sky and it's conjunct his Uranus. So that's further reinforcing the theme. So we're seeing exactly what we expected, the activation of this pattern in 2 ways. So let me go to my rules and we'll see how these rules got applied. There's 5 rules to doing this kind of forecasting. Number 1, find a major planetary pattern in the person's chart. We found it. It's a Mars, Saturn, Moon, Pluto in the 11th harmonic for Trump. When transits activate the pattern, it is very strong in the person's life. It's getting activated. It's very strong in his life. Now, if you're looking at a fairly long time period, like a month or more, I usually use the timeline. I've made other videos showing the use of the timeline, which shows you how these patterns change over a long period of times. If I'm looking at a day or a few days, sometimes the bi-wheel is nice to use. And in this video, I'm showing you the bi-wheel. So the bi-wheel with the time adjust. And then the last thing we do is we look at the harmonic we're interested in this case the 11th, of the composite chart. This is very important because it shows where things end up. It shows a final resolution, a basic theme. So to do this, we'll go to the July 16 natal, okay, not the 11th harmonic, but the natal. We'll do a composite chart. So we select composite of 2 charts, and we do the composite to Donald Trump's natal. We just do a normal composite, natal to natal. Leave out the harmonic thing, just normal natal to natal. And this is a normal composite chart, what we call ascendant midpoint time. It's not the time space. It's a normal composite chart. And there it is. This is the composite, and it tells me up here in the right corner of July 16 natal and Donald Trump natal, composite of the transits on the day of the meeting with Donald Trump. Now I'm going to do an 11th harmonic of the composite. This will sound really wild if you're not familiar with this, but what we're doing is we're seeing what the 11 vibes are in this symmetry chart. The composite chart is a symmetry chart. It shows the symmetry, lines of force at the center between 2 people. And we look at the 11 vibrations of this. So, these ideas have developed over decades. I started this work in 1972. So, this sounds very wild, but these ideas have been developed and refined over decades, and lots of other people using them now, and all kinds of research being done. So, it may sound wild if you're new to it, but it's really simple. We're going to look at the 11 vibration of the composite, and the composite chart is like a symmetry chart. Are there any major patterns here? Oh yeah, there are. Look at the Mars-Saturn, almost an exact conjunction, less than a degree. Let's get to work. Donald Trump's Mars-Saturn energy. That's so strong for him, right there in the composite. So that conjunction in the transits and the conjunction in his natal chart balanced each other And because of the way that they spread, what the orbs were, it's exact. It's within a degree in the composite chart. And there it is, very tightly square Uranus. Mars and Saturn at 5 Pisces, square Uranus at 6 Sagittarius, at about a 1 degree orb. Wow. Mars, Saturn, Uranus. This is dynamite. This is Trump going his own way completely. And two other planets, Jupiter and Pluto, are involved as well. And that's fairly, actually, the Jupiter is very strong. Jupiter's in here giving growth, development, confidence. Also, Jupiter Uranus, there's some enthusiasm here. So he's, even if people obstruct him, he's going to feel good about this. He's going to feel optimistic about it. And he probably is going to, you might say, get away with it because he's got the Jupiter Pluto power, the Jupiter Uranus enthusiasm. So he's got a buoyancy here that's going to help. Now, I make these comments without any interest in my political interests, whether I love Trump or don't love Trump, love or hate the person, whatever it is. I leave that out. Just like when I made the forecasts for who would win the elections, and I picked that Trump would do much better than people thought he would, and that he would win the nomination and possibly the presidency. I'm not, frankly, I'm not particularly a Trump fan. So there you have it. But so maybe you think I am because I'm saying such good things about him. But I'm going by the astrology, and there it is, very clear. So every way we look at this, it's very, very strong and clear that Trump's independent, self-motivated way of being is hugely amplified, and that's why this week is a very disturbing week where he goes his own way even more radically than people expected, to the point where his opponents are yelling treason and all kinds of things like this, which is probably not going to work because his Jupiter's involved in it, smoothing it out and making it big. And Jupiter tends to soften things as well as make them bigger. So attempts to stop him on this won't happen. And then it peaked again on July 19th, Thursday, when he invited Putin, and there was another activation going on with the Mars Pluto in the sky. So there you have it. So applying these rules to Donald Trump, we did all this. Just to review what we did, we brought up Donald Trump's chart, and we made a chart for July 16 at about the time of the meeting. We selected the 11th harmonic of both charts. From the 11th harmonic chart, we went to the transits. The transiting 11th harmonic, we did a bi-wheel with Donald Trump. And then we also did a composite chart, and then did the 11th harmonic of the composite chart. So those are the basic rules. Okay, and we can also look at midpoint structures, by the way, which we didn't do here because the aspects was enough to convince us that this is an extremely supercharged Donald Trump on his own, getting down to work, no funny business. He's going to do what he wants, how he wants, when he wants, and nobody's going to stop him. And he did. It's like classic Donald Trump with all this activation in his chart. Let's see if I mentioned all these things. The transiting Mars-Saturn, I've got a list of 7 things. So just to summarize, and I think this is my last slide. I just have one comment about other resources for learning VA, but this is really our last slide. So just to summarize what we saw, the transiting Mars-Saturn conjunct is just like Trump's 11th harmonic chart. So they both have the Mars-Saturn in the 11 vibration, both the transits and the natal, and then it appears again as a very tight conjunction in the composite chart. Mars-Saturn energy extremely strong. The transiting Mars-Saturn, they're retrograde, and they're heading towards Pluto, which means there's a Mars-Saturn with a little bit of Pluto energy involved, very similar to the Mars-Saturn-Pluto in Trump's chart. So we're getting Mars-Saturn and also Mars-Saturn-Pluto to some extent. And then on top of all that, transiting Uranus is in opposition Trump's Mars-Saturn. It's been there for 3 weeks. And number 4, transiting Mars-Saturn is conjunct Trump's Uranus. So we notice we have a Saturn-Uranus both ways, which is very disturbing. And as we mentioned, transiting Sun on the day of the meeting is on the Mars-Saturn. It's a fast moving, it's only there for one day. During that day, Sun is right there, highlighting it. Perfect, bringing it into focus on the day of the meeting. We time adjust to July 19th, and we see that the transiting Mars-Pluto opposition is exact on that day, and there's like a reprisal, like a return of the theme. We're going to bring Putin back right on that day. It's amazing. And then on top of all that, you look at the composite chart, not only does it have a very tight Mars-Saturn conjunction within 1 degree, Uranus is very tightly square it. Oh my God. Saturn-Uranus is disruptive, disturbing, very independent. So Uranus gets involved in the composite chart. These results were predictable. So if I had looked at this ahead of time, I'm fairly sure I would have predicted that this is going to go bonkers. Trump is going to go his own way. The Democrats are going to go crazy, and they're screaming treason and all this kind of stuff. I expected that even the Republicans would get upset, but you know, Trump's Jupiter's involved in that composite chart, letting him, you might say, get away with this. So that's it, my friends. What I really think is important here is not to let your political opinions overwhelm your ability to understand the astrology. So if you're pro-Trump and you feel like I've hinted at something negative about Trump, or you really dislike Trump, you think he's the worst thing in the world, and because you might think I've said nice things, let's not worry about nice or not nice. Let's think about the energy flow. Did we describe the energy flow? I think it's very strong argument that you can see here, very compelling, that we've described the energy flow, whether you like it or whether you dislike it. Okay, so I wanted to show you an illustration of how major patterns in your chart get activated by transits, and that side of you comes to the highlight. So I hope that gave you a good illustration of how to do it. And if you want more resources for learning vibrational astrology, you probably know I have over 300 videos, so there's lots of videos on many, many topics, many of them on vibrational astrology. There are classes and seminars. There's the Avalon School of Astrology. Also, Linda Berry gives classes. I had meant to bring up her website, and also the articles. Let me see if I can bring up a browser super fast here and show this to you. Let me show you the articles. So here's the astrosoftware.com website. Let me just bring this down. This will just take a second. And if you go over here to articles and videos and you go to articles, there are lots of articles here. So you have all this in addition to the videos. Also, a nice way to get to the videos, by the way, is over here, free tutorial videos. And this takes you right to some of the playlists for different topics. And of course, you can just go to the channel page on YouTube. So you have the articles and videos. There's the Avalon School of Astrology, which has classes. So that website's avalon.astrology.com. And then Linda Berry has classes, and some of the other vibrational astrologers will be teaching soon. I know that Linda already is giving classes. And here's one of her websites, astrosleuth.org, and some of her classes. So just letting you know about some different resources. And also, going back to the PowerPoint, the annual Vibrational Astrology Conference. So in early April of every year in Gainesville, Florida, there will be a conference. So it's an exciting way to meet the people in the field, get the latest information, get up to date on everything going on, share your questions, your ideas. It's just exciting to actually meet live with the people. And to learn more about that, if you go to the astrosoftware.com and go to conference, and then Vibrational Astrology Conference, and you'll get the information. So that's it, my friends. An example of how transits activating a major pattern in the birth chart brings that out, makes it conspicuous, and you know what side of the person is being activated and will come to the forefront. And so it was very clear what that was for Donald Trump on this very, very notable week. I think when his presidency is done, this is one of the weeks people are going to note historically as important, and for exactly the kinds of reasons that we saw by looking at the transits. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.